Well, here we go. Part 2. 996, 997, lower control arm bushings and control arms, right? So what you're going to need, a barrage of ratchets, right? 15, 16, 18, 20, 21. You're going to need an 18mm socket, 3/4 socket, the lock for your wheels, a screwdriver, Phillips head, right? Oops, there we go. Phillips head. 1/2-inch wrench, probably a breaker bar, 1/2-inch ratchet, sorry, breaker bar. Quarter drive, a Torx, 10mm socket, a jack, and some jack stands. So, and then if you do the lower control arm bushings, you're also going to need a bushing press, a little bit of anti-seize. All right, so let's touch on the lower control arm because that's kind of continuing from what we started in the front this morning. Super simple. We're going to take off the, well, let's start with the inner fender well. So you've got 3 10mm bolts, nuts, sorry, one right here, one right here, and one right there. Okay, take those 3 out. That panel right there drops out, right? Then you've got the little air deflector. Sits down here in the front of the wheelhouse. Phillips head right there corresponds with this Phillips head right here, right? Get that out. Looking at it from underneath the car, you got 3 Torxes. You got one here, one hidden up inside there, and you got one right there. Drop that out. The tray is loose. 18mm on the bottom, just like the front. 22 on the top. Your regular 21 on the top for the nut. Your regular 21-inch wrench is not going to fit in there. This is the snap-on part number. I don't know if you want to go buy a snap-on wrench just to do one nut on a car, but that's your part number. Fortunately, I'm a mechanic, so I had it in a toolbox. So you're going to need to sneak in. Let me show you. I left the nut up in there, no reason, because trying to get that out, it's going to be a set of needle nose or something, right? Long needle nose. So there you go. We're in there like that, right? And then you break it loose from the bottom with your 18. Pretty tight, over 100 foot-pounds. So once you get that one out, you're going to come around just like the front of the car. There's your torque arm. Down at the bottom right there. There's a hole right there, right? I've got my finger on it. You're going to have same bolt as the front. Sorry, guys. Right there, right? 18 and 21. Take those 2 out. You get the car obviously lifted up. You've got it on jack stands. Then you're going to need to unload the suspension with your jack. You're going to put it somewhere out as far as you can out here without tweaking that little tin shield or putting on a rotor or something. Then you're going to relieve the suspension, right? Or else you're going to have this kind of angle, right? And the other end is not a flexible joint. So, well, it's slightly flexible, but not enough where you're going to be able to pull it up. But as you rise that wheel back up, that'll come in line right there. You'll be able to put it back together. That's all there is to do in the fronts. Or to do the rears, sorry. So easier than the front. This is the Meyle number. Like I said on the front, you know, you go back to part 1, you can see the difference. It's a good piece, looks like a good piece. The only thing I see about it that's different, which I went over in the first video, is that it's, there we go, it's wider in cross section right here. So when you go to put it on, when you go to put the brake cover on, the air deflector, right, it doesn't fit. So it doesn't fit well. So the back part does, but the front part doesn't. So anyways, on the back there is no brake deflector, so it's perfect for the back, and they're $100 as opposed to $250 from the dealer. So all right, if you choose like I did to replace the lower control arm bushing, this is it. It's made a lot of European lower control arm bushings where there's an air void here and here, 90 degree. Let me see if we can get it in the sun where you can see it. Oh, there you go, right? So you can kind of see how there's a void there. That's there to make the car a little softer on the ride when you hit potholes and stuff. this void, you know, it allows this to move forward and aft and not break suspension components and stuff. It also, when you drive a little more aggressive, it gives a little before the car actually turns. And then once it's mid-corner or slightly after turn-in, it'll, you know, move around. And anyways, it's not quite the same as just a solid bolt, so, or even a ball joint. So we're replacing it with the RSS piece. This basically takes the place of, I'm trying to do this one-handed, you know, the place of that. So obviously no compliance, right? They're not a press fit or anything. This is a press fit, and it's a light press. It's not too bad. This, to get this out, well, once they're in, they're just, I mean, they're super smooth fit. I don't know if I can show you. If I can get in here and you can see them kind of move. Let's see if I can get my hand in here. I'm trying to get coordinated and get a camera. I don't think you can be able to see it move. Oh, maybe. Oh, there you go. See? So a little bit of anti-seize on them, and they slip right in. You got to have them lined up, or you'll get them cocked in the control arm. And they're both the control arm and this are very soft aluminum. So careful there. I use the Harbor Freight ball joint puller. Man, I've used that thing for everything, and it's cheap, and it's cheaper. It's cheaper than the OTC I have at work, so it works pretty good. This top part does work to drive the bushing into, right? It won't get it all the way, but you know, once you're that far, it's going to go the rest of the way. The other piece that comes in the kit is this, and it won't do it. You can get it broken to move. You're actually going to have to drive the bushing. I mean, if you know, come on, if you guys are doing this, you kind of need to know what you're doing. I'm just giving you an overview. This thing fits, but it's just about the size of it, so I just got it to break the press with it, and then I tried to push it through the center. That kind of works. You get it about halfway, and then it'll run up into the inside of here, right? But once this is halfway, there's actually a void. I can't show you the inner control arm, but in the control arm, right in here, there's a void. I would show you, but well, you'll see when you start taking it apart. So the bushing's not completely held like this. There's like an air gap. So once you get it about halfway, it really isn't that difficult to get out. So I didn't drop the lower control arm, right? What I did, well, I dropped it. I didn't take it out of the car, right? Because I didn't want to split the ball joint. Because there's nothing wrong with this lower control arm. So what I had to do, 15 millimeter on the front for this triangulator, 16 millimeter on the rear, 15 midway, right? The midway is actually right here. Okay, so it goes across like this, then it goes under the car. Let me show you under the car. You can see, oh, let me see where it is. Okay, you can see the other side coming forward, right, or going forward and aft right there. And then that bolt hole that's missing right there, it lines up with that bolt hole, right? So you take that out and you're good. Other than that, so I dropped that triangulator out. Then I was able to take this 16, and I believe the other side was a 20 over here, which was kind of weird. Yep, it's a 20. You can see I put a couple marks in there to keep the alignment, which I got to set, you know, before I put it all back together. But I pulled those two out. The arm dropped out, right? Let me give you an idea. The arm dropped out. I rotated it, and I was able to raise the car up. You know, I jacked the car up high enough where I was able to get the bushing tool underneath, or the bushing tool, you know, the press underneath, and I just pressed it directly on the car right in this area. So that's about it, you know. While we're talking about RSS though, let's talk about their motor mounts real quick. I mean, I'm not going to talk about them a lot more. I'm going to say these are the stock motor mounts that came out of this car. When you see this much void, this should actually be flush. So this should be up in here. So they had sagged about an inch, right? And the main way you can tell that is when you're looking at the back of the car, the exhaust is kind of hanging down a little bit. And you'll hear a clunk when you stand on it, you know, when you're accelerating hard, you'll hear the engine come up in the car. anyways, you can go to a bunch of forums and see how bitchin' the RSS ones are, which is what I replaced these with. So, one last thing on brake maintenance, because I touched on that in the first part and I didn't really do a very good job. So what you're looking at when you're looking at pad maintenance, you're looking at this part of material. Let me see if I can get a better focus on this thing. Okay, you're looking at this material down in here, right? From this piece of steel to this rotor, right? There's friction material in there. This one's about half, so I'm gonna leave them. See, there you go. It's a good shot of it right there, right? That pad goes from here all the way down to here, right? So you wanna look from the front side, and you're looking in, let me get you guys a better shot. You're looking right in here at the pad material, right? These are your sensors right here. 1, 2, wait, 2, right, inboard. Let me get that in focus. There you go. So that's your pad sensor, inboard, outboard, right? You can save yourself some money by keeping an eye on your pads and then reusing your pad sensors and your clips and your pins and all that. Because if you buy a hardware kit for a 911, which comes with the clip, the pin, the pads, the springs, and the sensors, that's about $1,000. So it's about $250 a wheel, right? And if you just do the pads, you know, maybe 100 and something. So, all right, that's all my tips and stuff for today. Hope you guys learned a little bit about lower control arms and RSS, and that's it. I'll see you when we're doing the next part, which is probably going to be a strut, it looks like.